Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be our top 3 lessons learned in 2023, right? So this is going to help you out if you're a miner, a crypto investor, whatever. These are the top 3 things that made a huge difference in my mindset this year, right? They were huge game changers. Even though we were in a bear market, and you guys have been following, a lot of dubs and a lot of lessons learned, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video, just some overall strategies to step your game up, right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get to this thing. So before we start, none of this is financial advice, right? I'm not telling you to do anything. These are just things that I have learned, things that I have seen, and things that have worked for me personally, right? And I'm just going to talk about them. So let's get to it. So number 1, huge game changer. Make a plan. Set up goals, right? The biggest one for me is setting up accumulation goals, right? Looking at which coins you want to be in, and then from there setting up price targets where you think it may go, and then set up an accumulation goal for those coins, right? It's up to you depending on how you want to do it, whether you want to have a smaller amount of coins like me, that's my goal, narrow it down to like 8 to 12 coins and go from there. Or I know some of you guys like having like 20, 30 coins, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just set up your goals, right? So as soon as I hit my threshold there, decide to either readjust that goal, leave it there, move on to the next one, or continue to add onto that goal and just reevaluate, right? But I want to set up like minimums that I want to accrue. And especially this year, it's going to be extremely critical because I want to do the majority of my accruing, especially what I'm DCAing, what I'm buying into this year, right? After probably this summer, I'm going to leave it to just mining only. And at that point, realistically, I'll be looking more at hardware more than anything, right? So setting up those goals, another benefit from doing that, takes a lot of the emotion out, right? And that's been the biggest thing for me, right? Taking that FOMO feeling out, that like, oh, that fear of missing out, like, oh man, I want to get on this one. This is going to be the next hot thing. Go with the coins that you have high conviction in, set up that accumulation goal, and then fill that goal, right? There's going to be different times though, right? When it makes more sense to do this or to do that, or to buy this or to buy that, right? So like a lot of the accumulation goals, it's dependent on if I'm going to DCA that month or that week or whatever. Okay, which one is at the lowest than the other point? Which one does it make more sense to buy now versus later? Okay, if this coin pumped 100% and this one went down 10%, I'm going to buy this coin that went down, right? Because chances are a few months later, farther down the road, it'll be the inverse and then I'll be buying at that time, right? So depending on the situation is going to determine what I go into, but at the end of the day, I still have those same goals set, right? Whether I'm buying or even when I'm mining. Right? Once I'm mining, I'm going to mine. I have certain priorities first, right? Depending on what's happening. Maybe there's a halving coming up or there's an ASIC coming out for this coin. So I'm going to go aggressively into those coins at that time, right? But at the end of the day, once I meet that threshold, it's on to the next one, right? And that to me has been a huge game changer, and it's simplified things, right? Because a lot of it just takes the emotions out. And at that point, I'm not like super invested into that coin. It's just, oop, got it, next one. Right, and then continuing from there. And these things aren't set in stone either, right? At times I've been adding coins, I've been getting rid of certain coins, right, depending on the thing, which hasn't fluctuated a whole lot actually. This whole year is pretty much the same accumulation goals from last year, but now I have added some with more confidence, right? At middle of the year I was kind of iffy on like which GPU coins I was going to heavily invest in or heavily want to stack. Now that vision is definitely a lot clearer, right? I pretty much am set at which coins. I'm still going to keep my eyes open for newer ones, but as far as the ones I want to go in heavy, it's pretty much set. Now it's just really time to really start stacking, right? Because certain coins I did accumulate a lot. Others that are on my list, I have not, and that's going to be definitely an upcoming goal for me, is to start going into those coins, right? Another big thing, especially on the DCAing front, setting price targets. Right? Setting goals like, okay, what did I buy in this coin at? What am I looking at? Where does it seem too high? Where is it too low? And that's kind of what I base my DCA targets off. Now it is going to get harder though, because a lot of these coins have pumped aggressively, and now we're starting to get to the point where don't have as much time anymore, right? Towards the beginning of last year, I felt confident that, yep, we're going to go lower. I'm going to have a lot of time to accumulate. Okay, now this year has passed. Now we're getting to the point where the halving is what? 4 months away, right? At this point, we're not necessarily fully running out of time, but I have a lot less time to get those goals, right? Especially at these cheap prices, because we may not have such big dips anymore, right? At this point, I do not have the amount of confidence that I had last year that we'll have significant dips from here. Hopefully we do and we have more buy opportunities, but at this point, I need to start readjusting those price targets, because I may have to just DCA at these higher prices whether I like it or not, if I want to meet these goals, right? So that's been a huge thing, is just making that plan and then setting it, whether it's, you know, the accumulation or these price targets, or if it's even just buying hardware. Okay, every 3 months I want to buy X amount of GPUs, or I want to buy one more ASIC, or whatever it is. Just set up a goal, set that plan, execute that plan, right? Makes it real simple. Okay. Now let's go to the next lesson. And this has been another huge one. Trusting your gut. Going with your instinct, especially if you guys have been around a little while, even if it's just like 6 months or a year or 2 years, right? I'm still fairly new. I'm going into my 3rd year now. I have learned a lot, and definitely one of the big things is to go with your gut. Go with it, trust it. Don't take my word for it. Don't take this guy's word for it. Don't take the overall narrative's word for it. Go with where you see value, right? For me, a good example of this was my switch going to primarily ASICs, right? And this is something that I had talked about in the beginning. This is something I had been planning since before last year, right? Last summer, right? Leading into the ETH merge. Once that ETH merge looked like it finally really was going to happen this time, I already set my plan in motion. I already started liquidating a bunch of my GPUs, because that was my strategy, to pretty much eliminate nearly all the GPUs and essentially switch them for ASICs, right? Because I knew the writing was on the wall that once that ETH merge was going to happen, profitability was going to go to crap, and a lot of these ASICs were looking pretty good, right? So that was my strategy. It was definitely against the narrative. It was out of the norm, and that was a big reason why I wanted to start the channel, right? A lot of people were not talking about ASICs. They were not talking about how to purchase ASICs. What are best practices with ASICs? What should I be looking for with ASICs, right? And it's been a big, huge learning lesson for myself also, right? So that was a huge, huge game changer. Another example of trusting your gut is looking at price targets, right? Looking at prices, looking at different coins, and going against the narrative if it's a coin you follow, if it's a coin you believe in, right? The best example of this is with Solana. I talked about this last year, exactly this time last year, about buying Solana back when it was freaking under 10 bucks, right? My biggest thing is that by this time, we already knew the ramifications of the FTX fiasco. So it wasn't even the scare there. We already got that cleared up. We already knew how much was allocated where, how much the team had, how much the team didn't have. We knew all of those things already. Nothing fundamentally changed with the blockchain, but yet because everybody on like crypto Twitter, all the other YouTubers, Solana's dead, Solana, da, 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 da. As somebody who followed the coin and who was with it, who've been participating in it since the previous bull market, nothing fundamentally changed with that coin. So that's why for me, when all that was happening, I was go ahead, talk crap about it. I'll keep stacking. I accumulated pretty much all the Solana I wanted to for my goal during that time. And then I kept DCAing bits when it was at 15 bucks, 18 bucks. The highest I purchased that year was 20 some dollars, and I'm still at my goal. I did over purchase, so I did take profits. That way I'm still at my goal. But I mean, that's the best example, is that even with all the FUD, even with everybody else talking crap about it, if you see that value there, go for it, right? Those are the times to be buying. Not when it's at 80 bucks, like, oh, feeling that FOMO. It's a little too late, right? The time is when that kind of stuff is happening. That's the time to go in, and that's the time to go in aggressively, right? Another big example is another reason I started the channel, right? What was the big narrative even after the ETH merge, right? Mine at a loss, mine at a loss, mine flux, mine flux, mine flux, mine at a loss. I got a lot of hate initially. Those first few videos I did talking about how it doesn't make sense to mine at a loss, it makes more sense to buy. Definitely paid off, right? And you know, even just now, this is still like a narrative like, oh, no, it's definitely always better to mine. And yes, you know, people gave the examples of when they were mining kaspa early. And yes, it did work out quite a bit. But what people also didn't talk about is that it still made more sense to buy the coin at that time, right? I had even done comparisons showing that you would literally, for your dollar, at certain times would get 3 times the amount of flux by just purchasing it versus mining it. Even factoring in the writing off of the electric, even factoring the write-off of the hardware, it still made more sense to do that. Same with like kaspa, for example, right? I didn't mine it until really right when the FPGAs came out. I had purchased all of mine, and it still 100% made more sense to do that at the time, especially as a smaller miner, right? Because then at that time, I switched over to ASIC, so I did not have that many GPUs. So it definitely made more sense to buy it at that time, okay? Because literally for $300-400, I was able to mine essentially what would have taken me on multiple rigs months to do with just that purchase, right? And that purchase ended up freaking appreciating massively. I had bought mid-October, okay? For like $300-400, you're able to buy like 200,000 kaspa. Okay, so it pays off. Even going against the narrative, it makes no sense to do that, blah, 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 blah. Let them keep talking, right? Again, initially when I made those videos, you know, it doesn't make sense to mine at a loss, blah, blah, blah. Again, everybody has their opinions on that. But I know what I have seen, what I have calculated, and what I have done, right? It just 100% makes more sense to, again, trust your gut on these things. If you're running the numbers, again, the numbers don't lie, guys. When you're running your calculations, you're running your numbers, see what makes most sense to you, right? Regardless of what this guy's saying or what this guy's saying or even what I'm saying. Go with what makes more sense to you. Again, just follow your gut, guys. Follow it. If it makes sense to you, you're running the numbers, go for it, right? Enough of that little rant. So let's go to the next lesson. And this has been, again, another huge one that has produced way too many dubs this year, right? For being a bear market, if you guys have been following, there's been extreme profit potential the entire year, right? From what? From being early, right? Being early has been like the biggest payoff, period. So many freaking examples from the beginning of the year. Right? So again, I had mentioned purchasing kaspa, purchasing Radiant, purchasing Dynex at the beginning of the year, purchasing Chlor at the beginning of the year, purchasing even things a few months ago, right? We had that huge pop off with like Nuri and Chlor. Crazy run-ups just from being early, right? Buying it down here, buying it just freaking mid-November. Like even the all-time low from what they have listed, which it goes farther back than this, but from what they have listed back in September, 2,000% increase. Again, guys, even just tossing $100, right? It can be an extreme game changer, right? From what? Just being early, right? Nuri, Chlor, SatoX. Another great example of this is all these D-pin projects that have popped off like crazy, right? Hivemapper. Shout out to any of you guys who got in with Hivemapper. Because I didn't, right? This is one I definitely missed out on. And this was a huge game changer, right? Again, this thing was in October, was at a penny. This thing peaked at 28 cents, guys. From 1 penny, 28 cents. Insane. Insane profit potential. Why? From being early, right? Not only like purchasing or getting it here, but mining or accruing coins during this downtime when nobody wanted this thing. These are the people who made out, right? Mining during these boring times, picking a coin that nobody's interested in, just stacking those coins throughout that time, right? We see this again and again. We saw this with Hivemapper. We saw this with Demo. Another huge one was Helium Mobile. Shout out to any of you guys who set up the 5G antennas during that Genesis period. Some of you guys earned in the 6 figures over this thing, over just literally setting it up and having proof of coverage. Right? During that Genesis period, it was a ridiculous amount of coins just being offloaded to you guys every day for being those early investors. Right? Insane potential. Another example with this is the guys who got in early with the ice rivers. right? Shout out to like Greater Good Mining or any of you guys who got in, especially the ones who pre-ordered before it was really even, not necessarily made official, but before we even saw the machines live with RPM, right? You guys made out extremely well, right? Why? Because they were early. They took that risk. They jumped in. They saw the value. They had that disposable income, and they took that risk, right? And it paid off massively, okay? Another good example of all these things, which one just happened recently, is with ASIC miners, is being early with these miners that have an algorithm or a coin that isn't super well liked, and being able to mine for a long period of time. Good example of this is with Kadena, the KA3. Initially, yes, it was super popular, and then the coin value tanked. So did the popularity, right? The benefit there was that if you mined during that time where it was boring or profitability was barely break even or a couple of bucks, we made out extremely well. If any of you guys who got your batch anytime like in February, March, you made your money back already, right? And then some. Like mine has more than paid off, and I'm already working on paying off that stupid brick behind me, my KD Lite, right? So, and that was kind of the purpose of it. I wanted to double down. I actually am into Kadena, and a lot of you guys hate Kadena, but to each their own. And I doubled down, right? So I doubled down with getting with this guy, because again, it is a project I follow. And that's another one I'll kind of touch on as well. Look at the coins you follow, look at the coins you like, go into them, right? Again, this kind of falls into that trust your gut thing. A lot of people hate Kadena, a lot of people hate whatever. It is a coin I follow. It is a coin I do believe will do well. And it's a coin that I've tripled down on, right? Got that KD Lite, kind of got stuck with it, ended up with this KD3 to double down. And then the reason I say I tripled down is because back when it was in those lows, when it was like 40 to 60 cents, I bought pretty aggressively, right? With the intention of helping to potentially ROI that guy back then. And I'm fairly close to that goal, right? Essentially within, if it's probably going to go down a bit, right? Because of this little resurgence with the profitability. But if yield stays relatively about the same for another 2-3 months, even that guy will be paid off already, right? Which is insane because, again, for any of you guys who caught those first few videos I did, talked about that guy. That was a $10,000 mistake back there, right? But things are looking pretty good already, right? Thankfully, just because, again, having conviction, trusting my gut, doubling, tripling down on it, right? So just a lot of things to take into account, guys, and just a lot of examples of this throughout the year, right? It's just by learning these different things, by like taking advantage of these things. I know a lot of people complained, oh, this was such a bad bear market. Again, for those of you guys who've been keeping up with these goals videos and be keeping up with the strategy, it's been stupid, right? Literally every single quarter there has been an extreme profit potential chance where we made money throughout this whole bear market, right? Even though this is a bear market, this has been revenue-wise, profit-wise, this has been my best year mining so far, period, right? And again, it's from doing these things. Making that plan, setting those accumulation goals, following my gut with those projects, following my gut with Solana. Solana was a big winner. Kaspa being my biggest winner, right? Again, like I mentioned, that thing took over my portfolio because of how much it went up, right? And then being early, right? With all of these things, with my ASICs, right? I mentioned the KA3, but all of my ASICs are just about to the point where they are ROI'd. Right, I think the last one I have to do is my little HS3, and even that one, the one that had the least amount of confidence in, the highest degen factor, in about a month and a half, it's gonna ROII, right? And at that point, it has extreme profit potential. All of them do, right? Even the K7 with the halving and being down a hash board for like 2 months, even that thing is there already, right? And it's just from taking that chance, going in early, and then continuing. Right, so at this point, hopefully we are able to continue to mine. Profitability stays where it's at. I'm just going to continue these things, right? And hopefully just continue these trends. Now I can breathe a lot easier because all my initial risk is gone. And that's why I went so confident in with the KS3M, right? At this point, whatever happens, happens. I'm good with it. So far it's been panning out amazingly, but it just kind of depends on how you factor your return on investment, I guess you could say, right? I've talked about how I kind of see it, which is kind of different. And I'm good with that risk factor just because, again, I've been able to kind of de-risk just because of that, right? A lot of those plays have paid off, and now I have room to mess around with. We'll see what happens in the future. I do have plans set up, my accumulation goals. Ideally, I'm kind of done with ASICs most likely. At this point, the only one I would potentially try is for an lithium ASIC, right? Because again, that's, of all the GPU mineable coins, that's best tech-wise, right? For sure, to me, that's been the most promising, and that's the one that I also have the least amount of coin in, right? So definitely if an ASIC comes out, that would be my way to make up that, right? So that's one I would definitely try for, just depending on price points, availability and such. But again, it's one I'm already thinking of. Like, I'm already thinking of what I want to do, what coins I want to get, when do I want to start accruing hardware. I'm kind of starting to get a clearer picture, especially right now with these next GPU releases here in the next few months. Kind of starting to see where I want to go with that, right? I'm not fully sure yet. Kind of waiting to see what happens with the market, especially after this ETF. And if we do get any kind of dip after, like, I'm talk about it more in the goals video. But again, these three things, huge game changers, right? I'm not saying they're going to work for you. I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm not saying that and the next ASIC you see from some random Chinese company to go wire them 50K. Not saying that either, right? You have to assess your risk. You have to look at risk versus reward. Do you have that disposable income? Do you think it's likely to happen? Weigh all those things in, but take into account what's happened in the past, right? Because like what we saw with the kaspa ASICs, with the ice rivers, it's going to happen again. We're going to have the same story repeat itself when the lithium happens, when RXD happens. Now we have a game plan though, right? As we see them, we see what happens. We see what things we got to look for. We got to see the type of sell pressure that happens. Like, we kind of are starting to have a game plan now. So now, even if you missed out on those things, learn from those things, right? We saw what happened with that. Now, the next time this happens, we have a game plan for that. The next time you see an opportunity with any of these deep in plays, you have a play for that. Like right now with Helium, they have these mobile miners that just came out. They have the little indoor and the outdoor. I purchased both of them, right? So it's just learn from those mistakes, look at different things. There's going to continue to be opportunities, but you have to be ready for them. You have to be willing to accept them. You have to look ahead and be ready. So that way when the opportunity comes, you're already planning for it, right? You already have money set aside, or you have whatever set aside, or you have whatever goals ready. And you're ready for them because they can happen at any time, right? Literally any time in the next month, we can get a notification. Boom, you have a chance right now at a spot and a lithium ASIC. You have 30 minutes to make a decision. Those types of opportunities come, right? It's just, you have to be ready for them. You have to have price points in mind. Like, I already have limits on if there were to be one, like what's the highest I would go, at what point is it good, we'll see what yield is, right? You have to have things ready to go, right? So guys, let me know in the comments, have any of you guys had dubs? Did you guys learn any of these things, right? Because a lot of these things are things that we had talked about that we were trying in our goals videos and doing all those things. Did any of them work out for you? Did you guys get in early? I think that's a big one that a lot of you guys did hit. I know there was a lot of success with you guys getting in early on some of these coins, on some of these deep in projects, a lot of these ASICs, right? Let me know in the comments. Let us know what has worked for you. Which one made you better? Which one, out of not just the things I listed, what things have you done that have made you better, right? Let's all learn from this. Let this be a good conversation in the chat, guys. Let me know. All right, guys, please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching, and I am out.